Hello. Do you notice anything different? Today, the day after Christmas, I have a new microphone. Thanks to my loving boyfriend, who is very thoughtful and saw how much I was suffering to make the other microphone work. So today will be, at least quality-wise, a lot better and hopefully a lot more enjoyable. So let me know if there's any problems with the audio levels. I know this is like epic music in the background. I was looking for something Harry Potter-esque for the background. That was copyright. Copyright free. So, oh, let me see. I don't know if that's a good level for everyone. So, hello, happy day after Christmas. So, for the past few days, since my boyfriend and I have had some time to spend together and we wanted to watch a few movies, we decided to start the Harry Potter series, and we're maybe like 20 minutes into the fourth one when I had to stop and prepare for the live today. And I don't know how many people, I forget the statistics, but I was watching a video and it said something like almost 70% of all Americans have at least seen one Harry Potter movie in their life. And I think that's significant. And there was something too about the books. Let me see if there's anything I can find with the statistics. I mean, undeniably, the Harry Potter series is very significant for people my age. I was 11 when Harry Potter was 11, and my boyfriend too, actually. So we both grew up with Harry Potter. Statistics about Harry Potter readers. Let's see. 20 facts about the Harry Potter book series. The impact of Harry Potter on readers of his age. All right. So that's me. Maybe you guys too. All right. Oh, this is an essay. Anyway, a lot of people read at least one book. So what was interesting, of course, when we were watching the movies, I was thinking about when I was younger and the fact that when we were religious, we went to church, but it wasn't something that really affected us so much as a family in those type of cultural things. I mean, if it was blatantly evil, then we wouldn't watch it or we wouldn't read it or anything. And there was always this idea of, well, when you're an adult, then you can make your own decisions. And so that was kind of the environment that I was in when the Harry Potter books first came out. And I read the first 3 books, and then we moved to a more traditional conservative church. And because Harry Potter, every year there was more hype and more interest, and it was like a cycle. Every year there would be another book coming out, and the topic came up, and our priest told us that the Harry Potter books were evil and the spells were real, and if we read the books, then it would be like we were saying the spells, and it would be like incantations to summon demons into our homes. Especially, it was always related to the home, the Catholic home. We need to maintain the Catholic home and only have good Catholic wholesome things within the home, because the home has to be a safe space from the evil, horrible world that's right outside the door. So you can't bring any of this evil into the world. So a lot of people went to, by the suggestion of the priest, went to the extreme of not even having televisions in their home, or they would have it for educational purposes. They would bring it out and watch a science video or something like that, but they weren't allowed to have any. They went to that extreme. And in my house, it was a little bit more reasonable, but still, after the third book, I wasn't allowed to read them. I did read the fourth book because I snuck it in. I was a kid, right? From my neighbor, we were best friends, and she let me read that one. But after the fourth book, I didn't read the other Harry Potter books, and with the movies, I saw the first two, and then after that, I couldn't watch them. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I was able to watch all of them. I read all of the books and loved them, and the movies also. Of course, this was after I had grown up and left home. Otherwise, my parents would have considered them evil. Magic phrase was 18 and out of high school. Yeah. All hail Lord Voldemort. Yeah, it's funny. That's one of the arguments. Okay, this music's getting a little ridiculous. I'm going to put on my normal lo-fi. I'm going to tell you a tale of a young Francis under his covers with a Harry Potter book, with the light of a singular flashlight shining upon the pages. The young Francis read the whole fourth book in one night, and that's the truth. All right, lo-fi. Let's. Oh, okay. Yeah, but somebody was saying that it's funny because one of the arguments is that evil and good are ambiguous in Harry Potter. So you can't give them to kids because kids won't know the difference. And I don't know if it was just me and how I was brought up, but I think it was evident to me as a ignorant child that I was able to tell the difference. Like you said, all hail Lord Voldemort. It's like, who would want to be that character? Although, I have wondered why so many people want to be in House Slytherin. Like, what is so appealing of that? Even with, okay, let me just get this out of the way first. I'm not a Potter head in any shape or form. I haven't even read all the books. I don't know a lot of the facts, but that still doesn't mean that it wasn't something that was significant to my childhood. But we were watching, there was this game show that came out in HBO, and they had the houses competing against each other like a trivia show, and I hardly knew any of the questions. My boyfriend knew all of them. But there were a ton of people who wanted to be in House Slytherin, and I was like, it's funny how many people want to do that. Like, it's cool to be the rebellious one and all of that, but yeah, I don't think that good and evil were ambiguous. Wait, what? Voldemort is my favorite character. I wasn't joking. All right, Dennis. To each his own. I don't see how people would confuse the good and evil. Well, I mean, when you look at some of the actions of some of the characters, it's like, okay, Harry broke the rules in order to do something good in the end, and then he was praised and he wasn't punished to do that. And I don't know, it just seemed very clear that some circumstances come up where the rules aren't made for every single circumstance. And, it's a fantasy world. When are you going to have to come up with those type of situations. Voldemort and Albus Dumbledore are my favorite characters. All right. I mean, as character studies, definitely. But I'm saying like Slytherin is a nice house. I was kind of hoping for Slytherin, but got kind of sorted into Gryffindor. It's funny. I'm the type of person that like when I was taking the test, like I knew what questions were going to put me in which house. And so I tried to answer them um, as honestly as possible, knowing what they would put me in. But in the end, because it was kind of tricky, but in the end, I ended up taking it 3 times and I got placed in 3 different houses. But in the end, I ended up in Ravenclaw. But anyway, I don't. That's not the purpose of this. I don't. I don't know enough about Harry Potter to go into this. Maybe if my boyfriend was here, he'd be able to talk more about it. But I thought it'd be interesting to talk about the ideas. Like I was watching some videos about some Christians that put up videos against Harry Potter. And then a surprising video from somebody that's usually would have an opposite opinion, but he has a very reasonable approach to Harry Potter because at least in my community, there was a emphasis on how amazing and beneficial and wholesome and the praising the literary quality of Lord of the Rings. So Lord of the Rings this, Lord of the Rings that, everything. But Harry Potter, no. Harry Potter, no, never. And in my mind, it was like, well, the author was Catholic. It's like, is that why? Is that why we push Lord of the Rings and not Harry Potter? Or Lord of the Rings must be like a allegory of something Christian, or looking at that. But it's funny. I know my parents also claimed it was bad because the heroes broke rules. But this is just crazy because in reality kids do break rules. Yeah, but it was, well, I don't really care about that argument. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Uh I mean, it's a fantasy world, and honestly, if someone's kids don't understand the application of rules in particular circumstances, or looking at a character and saying maybe they shouldn't have done that, like just being like a third party watching the story unfold and enjoying the story. If the child is like, oh, Harry Potter did this, so I'm gonna break every single rule. Like if that's the influence, then maybe there's something wrong with the education of the child. I don't know. Like putting kids in a bubble is not gonna save them. All right, so I thought we could watch some of those videos. Okay, wait a second. I think I just talked for like 10 minutes without. Oh man. Well, with the new mic, there's sometimes issues. All right, I'm gonna put on the music. All right, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm sorry about that, guys. There always has to be some sort of hiccup. That's part of the live stream. Okay, let's watch this. What do you think the answer to that question is? And I love all the different old classic like from my childhood witch shows and stuff. Not a fan. Not a fan of the Twilight series. I would never defend the Twilight series. Okay. I've seen this before. I usually try to watch some videos, not unless it's like a reaction, like first watch reaction that I do, but I did watch this, and this part is hilarious with the battery. Just listen to what he says. All right. So you know what he's going to say. He goes through the Bible talking about the occult, and then he talks about the number of the because of the Harry Potter series and all of these horrible witch or occult movies, there's more people interested in real Wicca. Um, and then he talks about, oh, I used to watch this show with my grandmother. Does that mean Christians aren't allowed to read anything but the Bible because most books have good characters who commit sins in their journey, and most romantic films have sex before marriage, most action films have murder, most fantasy movies have characters using magic or superpowers? Oh no. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Why isn't this going? Oh, here it is. I was messing with all the settings before. All right. All right, let's go back a little bit. Well, it doesn't matter. You didn't miss anything, I promise. Thank you for telling me about the sound. All right. All right, so then he talks about. Okay, we'll just listen.
Next, look at a couple NFL halftime shows drenched with occult symbolism.
First of all, it's the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl is kind of like the holy of holies in America, right? So, like, here I am. I'm gonna come into the halfway between like the church experience, and I'm gonna have to deliver a sermon. It's gonna have to be very.
Everybody knows that Madonna uses these metaphors from religion in a lot of her songs and stuff, and I think that's part of her shock value.
really shouldn't have been much of a shock to watch Madonna steal the stage for the Super Bowl 46 halftime show as she rode in upon her.
That noise, I don't know if you can hear it in the background for the music. The background music is just this like very dramatic and dark and really
Illuminati throne. Aside from dancing alongside depictions of Baphomet and a fallen angel, this halftime show performance also had its fill of subliminal messages.
I try not to laugh at people, but this is just overly dramatic. 37,000 views. What are people saying? Comments turned off. And now we can't see the like or dislike. All right. Well, he has 113,000 subscribers, so that's got to say something.
But the real focal point of this Illuminati ritual for me was during the closing song, where Madonna took the stage with the gospel choir standing before the Illuminati all-seeing eye and
people don't get trolling. She made this so that this person could freak out. And then they talk about Beyonce on stage one time, and then Katy Perry on stage one time, and then how they had all the. Well, this one's kind of funny.
Katy Perry was undoubtedly the obvious choice. Dressed in flames to represent a phoenix, Katy Perry took to the checkerboard stage where the pieces for the ultimate Illuminati halftime show fell into place, capping off both.
So Francis, where's the Harry Potter? Don't worry, it comes up. Let's see. Harry Potter.
Harry Potter books have been sold. The movie series has grossed over $8 billion at the box office. The entire Potter franchise, with all of the books, films, theme parks, tours, the ages of 6 and 17 have read at least one Harry Potter book.
There we go.
25% of Americans have seen all of the movies, and 61% have seen at least one. Does Harry Potter stir up interest in witchcraft? That's certainly what Ed Hubbard thinks, the guy who founded the witch school that has kept.
All right. I mean, if anybody wants to watch this, I'll oh, where's the copy paste? All right, I'm used to Apple. Copy, Control C, that's what I did. Oh, I did Alt C. It's different for, there we go. If anybody wants to watch that, there's something about here. There was an exhibition of Harry Potter, but the occult that's in it and how it's real.
Witches and wizards in the Potterverse, they are morally neutral. You are as good or as bad as you decide to be. There's nothing inherently wrong about performing magic. It's simply an ability that some people have.
Does that make it clear to anybody? So magic in their world is like and just the normal baseline. It's just like humans with free will. So for witches and wizards in the Harry Potter universe, everyone just has magic. And then you can use it for good or bad. How is that not Christian? Whatever. You shall not learn the following abominations
Harry
of the
Potter books and
Okay. Is there anything else here? I just thought it was interesting.
That we should be filled with the Holy Spirit. Is this going to happen by saturating our minds and hearts with occult-themed movies like Harry Potter? The Bible also admonishes that we should not grieve the Holy Spirit. Can we grieve the Holy Spirit without even knowing it? While God himself...
I mean, if you're watching Twilight, then yeah, you're probably grieving. Because that says grieving, if you didn't know. Grieving and filling. Filling is reading the Bible or they have something else.
And the one who is grieved. We certainly play a part by protecting our vessels. The very container he wants...
But like watching that person watching something, I mean, I'm here watching his video. Is that grieving? All right, I know that's not what he's saying. All right, let's go to... Oh, let's not start yet.
But I'm gonna talk about it anyway.
I don't know how to pronounce this woman's name, so I'll just leave it right there.
So today I have with me, dun 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 dun, Harry Potter. I have a Harry Potter book with me, you guys, and I want to tell you why Harry Potter is bad. Harry Potter gives a very bad, open message to youth, especially people in my age group. We grew up with Harry Potter, and Harry Potter
If she grew up with Harry Potter, how is she a good person now?
tries to paint the image of bad things looking good. It's trying to tell us that witchcraft and sorcery and divination have a good and a bad side, and that if you stay on the good side, it's okay. But I'm here to tell you.
What are you here to tell us? There was, let me see. I think I made a note for her.
That divination, sorcery, witchcraft, casting spells, consulting the dead is okay. Harry and his friends run around all day practicing their white magic and doing all kinds of good, yet they're fighting evil. With evil. Magic is evil.
Okay. I don't want to spend a million minutes looking at all of this, but this is the type of environment that I grew up in. And I remember just going along with it and saying, yeah, this is evil. It must be evil. And I missed out. So,
It was a Catholic school.
So this is Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, and I was expecting him to say something like, yeah, Harry Potter's bad or something. So I've seen some of his videos and I'm like, okay, he just spouts the conservative talking points. Not all the time, but I just assumed it when I saw it. But
was a Catholic school in Nashville, Tennessee, has banned the Harry Potter.
This is from 2019. All right.
Spirits, according to the Tennessean. The publication obtained an email from Reverend Dan Rehill, a pastor at St. in the U.S. and in Rome, and it was recommended that the school remove the books, the Tennessean reports. Reverend Rehill said of the Harry Potter series, these books represent or present magic as both good and evil, which is not true, but in fact a clever deception. The curses and spells used in the books are actual curses and spells.
Have you heard that? Have you heard? I know this people have been talking about this forever. Since the 90s, people have been talking about Harry Potter. But just because I was watching it with my boyfriend and just thinking about my past, that was something that came up in conversation.
Which when read by a human being, risk conjuring evil spirits into the presence of the person reading the text. Other parents had complained and so on, and so they took out the Harry.
So I was expecting him at this point to be like, well, that makes sense. Or not that makes sense, but to kind of go along with that.
I've heard this from other people that the magic spells in Harry Potter are, quote, actual magic spells. Are they, though?
Are they? Wingardium Leviosa. Guys. I
mean, actual magic spells? Because I don't think magic spells exist in reality. Have you ever seen anyone say a magic spell and then something magical happens? Have you ever seen that in your life? I never have. You know, that's something that exists in fantasy books.
And that's not wrong. That's why it's fantasy.
That's not a real thing. But this problem with Harry Potter, this is a thing among some Christians, a not insignificant number of Christians in my experience. some Christians are very uncomfortable with Harry Potter, and maybe that's understating it.
It is understating it. It was a huge thing. There were many book burnings of the Harry Potter books, and still it grossed over 8 billion in total with everything. 9 billion. It might even be more actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
I have to say that I don't understand it personally. This idea that it's somehow spiritually dangerous.
If you didn't think he was Catholic, just look at his arm and his tattoo. It's the Cairo. It means Christ.
That I don't get. Yes, there are magic spells.
It's like the typical tattoo that a Catholic would get. Either something of Mary or of that. Those are the only ones I can think of.
Spirits, evil forces, all that, but all of that exists. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, all of that exists in Lord of the Rings too. And I get that Tolkien was a Christian, and there are some Christian elements in the Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is not a Christian allegory, as some people like to claim. Tolkien himself was clear that it was not that, wasn't meant to be that. But
so, I was just watching some of those videos and I wanted to share them with you. If you want to watch them, the one that I put in the chat is for your entertainment. If you want to watch any of it, I found it funny. So, but also recently, oh, there's Aslan, and he's gone. Aslan, that's another book series that was allowed to us when I was a child, the Narnia books, and Aslan is the lion, and that's blatantly Christian, so that was okay. Actually, I do like the Narnia books. I've always liked them, even now, and I think they're really good. They have really good morals. They're very easy and simple, and they're good for kids. And it's blatantly Christian, but it's also just naturally good. The ideas in there, it's very innocent. Harry Potter is not so clear. It's more intricate and complex, and they bring good and evil into each character, and there's like not a battle necessarily, but you see how humans are just not one-dimensional, and we have all different sides of us, and it depends on what we decide to do. So I think that's more realistic than the Narnia series, but I still like it, and that's why I named my cat Aslan, and because he looks like a little lion with his hair. He just came back in. Man, I'm so happy about this microphone. If my boyfriend's watching, thank you. Because now I don't have to yell. I was losing my voice after the lives, and now I don't have to. So, the reason Father Ripperger, Exorcist, claims Harry Potter spells are real and the characters are the names of demons he has exorcised. Okay. I mean, that's what I heard growing up. There's Aslan. Hi. There was actually a video. I didn't play it, but there's one that said, yeah, a demon during an exorcism said that I was the demon that possessed J.K. Rowling to write out the Harry Potter books. Like, wow, J.K. Rowling is very influential. And you know what's amazing? She was on welfare. She was going without meals in order to make sure her daughter was fed. She was a single mother because she was in an abusive relationship. And I mean, it's all of that. But she devoted so much time and dedication to create the Harry Potter series. And she said she took a lot of the names from herbology books that she found, and all of these things really influenced her. She studied a lot the different histories and mythologies, and tried to bring it all in, but in her way. I mean, it's real it's not, people think like, oh, anybody could write a Harry Potter book. But no, she spent so long doing that, and she has boxes and boxes and boxes of papers and notes, and connecting the whole story. She wrote the summary of the whole story first, and how everything played in together before she even started writing. I mean, just real artmanship. And she was a teacher before. She loved writing ever since she was a little girl. Yeah. Okay, so J.K. Rowling, I heard that she is re-invited to the 20th anniversary of the first movie, but I'm not sure if that's 100% true. But there was a story that the whole franchise was trying to separate themselves from her. And why? Why? I read that title, that headline, and it was interesting. It didn't give a reason why, and she never spoke about it. But there was a separation, and usually there's a YouTuber that I follow, Blair White, and she made a video about it. This just happened in the past 2 weeks with J.K. Rowling, and Blair White said, we'll watch a little bit of the video, but she said that it's interesting because normally when they try to cancel a person, an artist, usually the works of the artist are also canceled, and people don't want to devote their time or spend money to endorse the product of a canceled person. But in this case, it's like Harry Potter and that whole world wants to just pick up and leave J.K. Rowling behind, even though she was the creator and the one who gave all of these people this world and this platform, all the actors who are millionaires because of this whole franchise. And they're just, wanting to separate themselves. It's interesting. So yeah, these are the kind of videos that I watch on my free time. Sometimes I try not to obsess too much because it will drive anyone insane. But it's good, like I was saying before, to just listen to different perspectives and try to see where the reason is. Try to see where the truth is. I mean, we want to look for the truth. We don't want to live in an ambiguous middle ground. Sometimes we have to be satisfied with that position, but it's always in the process of finding the truth. And we see two sides of this argument against J.K. Rowling, and this is something that's been going on for the past few years. Every, I don't know, few months or year, J.K. Rowling comes out with the new cancelable tweet, and then everyone attacks her and tries to cancel her, but she's too rich and influential and important in the world that it's not possible. And she hasn't really done anything enough. The anti J.K. Rowling movement isn't big enough to actually inflict damage. And I mean, you can look at when her first books came out with the book burning and trying to cancel the books for being satanic and all of that, and then now people calling her transphobic and a TERF. And if you don't know what a TERF is, it's trans exclusionary radical feminist. So feminists who are against transgender people. So that's a label that people have been throwing on her. And because I'm not trans, and because I don't have any trans people that I know, I have met a few, but not close enough to talk with. I sit back and I watch different people's opinions, and that's how I come to a an idea, an opinion on the subject. And I think that's a healthy way to proceed. So we're gonna start with a anti J.K. Rowling uh, my boyfriend has the volume up on the TV downstairs and he's listening to me right now. And he's probably going to see this and then put the volume down. That's hilarious. Okay, so we're going to watch. Okay, we're not going to start with that.
Hi everyone. For today,
that's not the one we're going to talk about. This is the one.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone has heard of the Young Turks, but they're a YouTube news group. There's a ton of those popping up, and these, I mean, everybody has their political bias now. I mean, there's no real place to go where you're not going to find a particular bend. There's nowhere you can go. I'm sure there's places you can go, but the bigger platforms like the Young Turks is liberal and progressive, and then you have someone like Louder with Crowder who is traditional and conservative. Hi Francis, about the topic of transgenderism versus J.K. Rowling. If someone insists that he's an amputee trapped in a normal body and wants to cut off an arm or a leg, he's delusional. He suffers from body identity integrity disorder. If someone wants to cut off a healthy part of a healthy organ, they're transgender and completely healthy. Come on. Okay, I think that's a very black and white way to present that argument, because as we'll see, not everyone who is transgender or who supports transgenders or accepts transgender is 100% one extreme or the other. They have nuance. Like every argument, there's nuance, and you can't just deny everything or accept everything. So we'll look at what the Young Turks and I forget her name. Anna, what's her name? I forget the name of. All right, doesn't say. Anyway, Anna's on the right, J.K. Rowling's on the left.
J.K. Rowling is in the hot seat yet again for.
Does she sound annoyed? I don't watch these people. I can't stand it, but we'll have to suffer through it just to kind of get a hint of the anger and the frustration of these people. The news.
Weighing in on transgender issues, this time in the context of rape.
So there's in Scotland recently, I'm trying to remember exactly. It's something like, listen, I'm not the news. I'm just some guy who heard something. So don't quote me. All right. But in Scotland, which is the home of J.K. Rowling, it's where she lives. It's where she wrote Harry Potter, actually. But J.K. Rowling made, or in Scotland, sorry, they ruled that a man, biological male, who identifies as a female, so transgender, is allowed to go into the female prisons, even if that individual has been accused of violence against a woman sexually, if you know what I mean. I think they said the word. I try not to say those words because I think YouTube just kind of like flags those videos. So if it pops up by accident, oh well. But I'm not gonna cause any more drama. I don't want to. Anyway, so that happened. So J.K. Rowling's just expressing her opinion, and we'll see exactly what she tweets and how that side of the argument reacted. Because, I mean, this video didn't get a lot, 82,000. I mean, a lot more than any of my videos get. But they have 5 million subscribers, the Young Turks. So they're an important voice for that side.
And how some countries have decided to honor the gender identity of people who are transgendered. Now,
I'm just not. Well, I don't want to really give my opinion right now because, I mean, I kind of, well, I don't know what to do. Let's just keep listening, and if I feel inspired, I'll say something.
she tweeted this: "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength."
War is peace. So we're looking at antonyms, basically. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. And then you can read the last one. The individual who, you, is a woman. Oh, okay. There it goes. Police have been criticized for saying they will record violence, sexual violence by offenders with male genitalia as being committed by a woman. That's what it is. It's not the prison one. I apologize. I do see now where the context is. And J.K. Rowling's just, expressing that it doesn't make sense. The reality and the interpretation is not, it just doesn't make sense. War is peace. If people say, we're going into peace, we're going to take our soldiers and our guns and our bombs, and we're going to go to this country and bomb them because we're in peace. It's like, sorry, you got the word wrong. That's what she's saying. I hope that makes sense.
The pianist in that some countries, again, have decided to honor the gender. But she has decided to focus on the fact that some countries, other than what they were born as. So, if you're born as a man but identify as a woman, there are situations in which the policies will respect that, like in Scotland, for instance. So the paranoia is in fact stemming from a recent law in Scotland which allows trans people to self-identify as male or female in the Scottish census, even if it differs from their gender at birth. Now, police have been...
Whenever I see someone and they're obviously on one side or the other, and they refer to any sort of data or anything, I would prefer to see the data. I would prefer to see the full picture before I assent to what they say. Because sometimes, a lot of times, people take a full page of data and they go like this to one line that fits their narrative, and then they run with it. So she's saying that it's just because the government wants to, on the census, say that a transgender person can put the gender of what they've decided to change into. Okay, that's what she said. Like, look how ridiculous that J.K. Rowling is saying this. Isn't that ridiculous? Isn't that extreme because of this thing? Which there's no proportion. So in my mind, I think, before I say, yeah, that's ridiculous, I think I have to investigate more. I'm not going to just say, yeah, she's transphobic. Obviously. Obviously, she doesn't want transgender people to exist. Obviously.
Criticized for saying they will record rapes by offenders with male genitalia as being committed by a woman if the attacker identifies as a female, even if they have not legally changed their gender. So
when I see things like this, statements like this, I think, you know, there's transgender people that I see online that I have come across a few in my real life and have spoken to them, but I don't know them very well. And it's like, you know, you respect other people, and you know, it's like a normal human interaction. But it's because it's like a social interaction. There's no need to go into any details or anything. And the ones that I've seen are obviously the other gender. Sometimes to the point where it's you can't even tell the difference. Not that that happens with everyone, that they actually look like the other gender or anything, but it's a normal social interaction, and we're humans and we respect other humans before there's a reason not to. But then you see something like, even if they have not legally changed their gender, it's like, how, like in my head, I think, you know, did they just not have time to go legally change it? Because I mean, if I was transgender, I would try to do everything possible to become the gender that I want to become a woman. I would do as much as possible. And legally, like, that would be one of the steps, I would think. So is it just, oh, these people haven't made it to the office yet to do that? Like there's a lot of things that it just doesn't make sense with me rationally. I don't want to go into details about genitalia, but it's like, you can interpret that to mean, oh, it's just somebody who is in the process. Or you could interpret that to say, this is a person who is just calling themselves a female, but that's it. Like, people out there who do that. So, yeah, like, there's examples. Like, what was the name of, there was a Canadian transgender woman who was using her status to come into contact with girls and women and taking advantage of them. So it does happen.
apparently this is what has gotten her very upset. And
she's at the point of rolling her eyes.
I don't get it. Like, it's the rape.
It doesn't matter if you get it or not. You're supposed to be a news source. You just state the facts, right? No.
Is the problem, right? I don't care about the perpetrator's gender identity. They should be prosecuted to the full extent, and that does happen. It's just that their gender identity is respected in Scotland in this scenario.
Is there an epidemic of this? Of trans people raping folks and then being...
It's not... Well, we'll see that... Anna Kasparian. Yeah, thank you. I knew her name was Anna. That's the name of the lady. I'm just not into... I'm going to see if there's anything else in here worth it.
This issue. And I think it's because they're in search of the other, and they've run out of people to hate.
Of boogeymen?
Yes. And so go-to, obviously, for centuries here in UK and many other places in the world was black people. It's okay.
Okay, so now we're comparing the struggle of black people to the struggle of transgender people.
Don't worry about your own problems. Just hate black people and it'll be okay, right? And then they're like, well, that became inconvenient, and it became gay people, and there was ballot measures all the way up to 2004 and beyond, 2008, etc. Hate gay people, hate gay people. And then that became uncool. By the way, one of the reasons it became uncool is because a lot of donors in the Republican Party turned out to be gay.
And
so
also,
then they were like, oh.
All right.
Don't obsess about, right? Or the corporate greed that leads to the insane mistreatment of workers.
Like, why are you talking about this issue? Why are you talking about this issue when there's all these other issues to talk about? That's a very typical argument. Like, why are you talking about the strife of women in the society when there's children starving in Africa? Like, why are you doing that? Very typical argument.
And for this to be the issue that they obsess about is fascinating. Now, in regard to what Scotland's doing with the census, it actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because what's the whole point of the census? It's to...
So anyway, we're going to look at... Sorry about the dogs in the background. We're going to look... So this is Blair White's video. And it's obvious from the clown face over Anna, the opinion of Blair White about the video that they made.
In the hot seat yet again for weighing in on transgender issues.
We have a crazy update in the J.K. Rowling story.
Last Friday, my family's address was posted on Twitter by 3 activist actors who took pictures of themselves in front of our house, carefully positioning themselves to ensure that our address was visible. I'm sure that it says. That's from November 22nd.
She tweeted out, last Friday, my family's address was posted on Twitter by 3 activist actors who took pictures of themselves in front of our house, carefully positioning themselves to ensure that our address was visible.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. 3 months and I've already done 2 podcasts with Joe Rogan. What exactly is happening? But on to today's topic, J.K. Rowling and the escalating level of hate, harassment, and cancellation that's being aimed at her. At this point, it seems like a semi-annual holiday for trans activists to just drag the ever-living fuck out of J.K. Rowling. It's almost a pastime. My last video talking about...
Yeah, it comes up a lot. I mean, I think a lot of people... I've thought of this too, this argument for myself. It's like, why care? Why care about all of these things that are happening in the world when it doesn't affect you? And the thing about living in a society and living with other people is that these things do affect us. Maybe not today, maybe not at this moment, but these things do have, they build momentum. They change things. They change people's mentalities. I mean, if it wasn't for the gay rights movement, then I wouldn't be able to get married right now. So there's a lot of things that happen that do affect everyone.
Rowling was, I believe, over a year ago, and if you're out of the loop, which you're probably not, she receives a lot of hate from trans activists and the woke mob because of several of her takes on certain trans issues. We're at the point where she's being doxxed. Activists are showing up at her house.
There's actually let me see if I can find it. There's J.K. Rowling did an essay called Turf Wars. And let me see how I can find this. I just enjoy the irony of the conservative Christians, or at least the Babylon Bee, being all supportive of J.K. Rowling now, and those who are more enlightened demonizing her. Isn't it? if you're watching this from the outside like a movie, because sometimes these things play out like a movie. You can't even, you couldn't create reality. Uh, you couldn't create a story in a movie that was better than reality. And that's so true. It's like, just look back. You see the conservative Christians who are so against J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter books, and the more liberal progressive, or yeah, go for it, yeah, just, going back and forth. Um, and now it's flipped. Getting it from both sides. She must be doing something right. I just got here. Sorry if it's repetitive. No, it's fine. No, it's fine because that's so true. It's I mean, in this world, in our life, if anybody is striving to be popular or famous or have that honor of the people, that's just a fruitless endeavor. It will never turn out good. There's always a flip-flop. There's always, maybe you're great today, but tomorrow you will fall. It's not a it's not a good. I mean, you see all of the TikTok stars that were booming. They had so many fans, and then it's like, oh no, they said this, and then it was interpreted as racial, or I don't know, bigoted, misogynist, or and then they're gone. They're gone. Someone who with 100 million followers on TikTok, on YouTube, or whatever, maybe not 100 million, but on TikTok, yes, there were people that big that just, they're gone. They're gone. And that's the dog downstairs. The nice mic will pick up the dog barking now. That's one of the bad things. But that's okay. It's life. There's dogs. There's everything. All right, let's keep watching.
Showing her address. She's being canceled from her own art, which is actually quite rare. Union happening in January. How do you not invite the person who birthed this entire union? It's despicable, personally. Who made you? I've defended Rowling better as a random tranny on the internet who owes her nothing than these actors who owe her everything. This is a saga that's traced back a few years now at this point, so if you need to catch up, I suggest just watching my other videos on Rowling. Just search her name on my channel. But this time, currently, she's being attacked and dragged by the mob because of her take on a recent policy in her home country of Scotland.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if we should come back to Blair White, because I want to look at another popular transgender girl, Samantha Lux. She has 627,000 followers, which is significant. 315,000 views of this video. It's 30 minutes long, but it gives a lot of the details, and that's what I like. She talks about the whole progress, like how it started, how this whole drama started a few years ago, and then each of the steps up into the present moment. And it's interesting.
Hi everyone, for today's video we're going to be talking about J.K. Rowling. If you guys haven't been living under a rock, you know that she's in some controversy lately over...
Thank you.
So, with no further ado, let's get into it.
Thank you. I'm giving all these people promotion. It's all right. We help each other out, I guess. Oh, so this is someone who's on the other side, who's against J.K. Rowling, and you'll find that out very quickly.
So on December 19th, she tweeted in defense of...
December 19th, 2019.
Maya Forrester. Here's a screenshot of what
Maya Forsteter. Maya Forsteter. So J.K. Rowling supported Maya, and Maya said, "What I am so surprised at is that smart people who I admire, who are absolutely pro-science in other areas and champion human rights and women's rights, are tying themselves in knots to avoid saying the truth that men cannot change into women, because that might hurt men's feelings." Okay, so like I said, these are not necessarily the words that I would use. We're looking at this like a third party and we're sifting through ideas. These are someone else's words, even though I'm repeating them. But I mean, she's very clear on her stance. And
I think I said Forrester. It's Forestater if you care.
It's
Women
not Forrestater.
lose out on privacy, safety, and fairness if males are allowed into changing rooms, dormitories, prisons, sports teams, etc. She's saying that if we allow transgender women into women and girls facilities, that we are undermining the safety of women and girls.
Sorry, I have to report another comment from another Russian bot. Okay, so that's a key issue. We're seeing this grow in popularity. The topic of transgender people participating in sports or going into prisons, like I said before. You know, there's so many things, and let's take the prison argument. This is something that I thought of. There's people that say transgender women should not be in prison with women because there's cases where the transgender women were actually, because they're in prison, violent criminals, and they assault the women in the prison. Okay, that happens. But then the other argument is, well, transgender women going into the male prisons, that's not an option. Just imagine how that would work out. Who would be the victim there? Okay, they're just two arguments. I wonder if at some point we're going to come to the conclusion that maybe there should be a separate area, a separate wing, a separate just place. And if that's what we have to do to kind of keep everyone safe involved, excuse me, as much as possible, maybe that's the solution. But I haven't really heard that option. It's always one extreme or the other. Or we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. It's like, well, what should we do?
In other words, transgender people are predators and cannot be trusted around women and children.
See, this is what people do. They take a particular circumstance, like there were cases of transgender people committing this violent act. Okay, one or two, whatever. Maybe we've heard of some. And then for people saying maybe we shouldn't create that space where that type of thing is possible. Okay. And then for that person who says that, then the other side says, you think all transgender people are evil, are everything else criminals, just because you say, I want to make sure that we're safe in this environment. Not from everyone, but from the criminal, if that makes sense.
It sounds to me like Maya's issue was mostly to do with men and women's spaces, and I think that's going to be a recurring theme throughout, J.K. Rowling's tweets. I think there's a huge problem with misogyny in this country, but I don't think that it's at the hands of transgender people. Okay.
And that's something that J.K. Rowling says in her essay. We're going to go to my full face as I'm going to type up, try to find this this essay that she did. Oh, the Mexican keyboard is a little different. Oops. Oh, shoot. Sorry. There we go. J.K. Rowling says that she doesn't consider the transgender community to be particularly to be the problem. But it's criminals who take advantage of that label to take advantage of people, if that makes sense. All right. Sorry. I will get this up. I think it's a long essay, but her reasons about her response. I don't know. Has anybody looked into this at all? Out on okay, almost done. Ooh, almost done, almost done, almost done. Okay. Oops, that page cannot be found. All right, I'll find it. Okay, here we go. I found it. I should have just gone to the website first. Oh, come on, Francis. All right. J.K. Rowling writes about her response for speaking out on sex and gender issues. So people are like, why the heck are you talking about all this? This isn't an easy piece to write for many reasons that will shortly become clear, but I know it's time to explain myself. Okay. So she talks about the Maya Forster. Oh, let me move this to make it clearer. So she talks about Maya Forster here, who lost her job for what they consider to be transphobic tweets. She explains why she did that. Let's see. She talks about TERF. What is TERF? If you didn't already know, and why should you? TERF is an acronym coined by trans activists, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. In practice, a huge and diverse cross-section of women are currently being called TERFs, and the vast majority have never been radical feminists. Examples of so-called TERFs range from the mother of a gay child who was afraid their child wanted to transition to escape homophobic bullying, which is an interesting conversation which I don't hear very often, to a hitherto totally unfeminist older lady who's vowed never to visit Marks and Spencer again because they're allowing any man who says they identify as a woman into the women's changing rooms. Ironically, radical feminists aren't even trans exclusionary. They include trans men in their feminism because they were born women. I mean, like, people are people, and people do stupid regardless of their sexuality. The fact that we can't talk about that is frustrating. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it. We're talking about it now. But that is interesting. Like, somebody who says, of an older woman who's like, well, you know, I've seen these visually apparent men, even though they might label themselves a woman, but they look, and you know, beard, everything, they look like a man. And that makes me so uncomfortable, and I'm making the decision not to go back to the store because I've had that experience, which is completely fine for anyone to make that decision. And people say, you hate trans people, and it's like, what? No, she's not saying that. She's not. Oh, okay. And then the mother of a gay child who was afraid their child wanted to transition to escape homophobic bullying is called a TERF as well. So maybe you're wondering, Francis, why is this something that is interesting to you, or something that you're talking about? I already said before that it's good to know what's happening in society. But why would I go through and read essays like this from Rowling, or watch videos from transgender people? And this takes me back to when I was a little child. And I remember in my environment growing up, it was heterosexual. Men liked women, women liked men, men got married, or men became priests. But that was the norm. And when I saw myself, because I liked men, I tried to compare myself to the two options. Biologically, I'm man. Biologically, I'm a man. But I don't like women. I'm not sexually attracted to women. So I don't fit there. Biologically, I'm not a woman, but I like men. So I'm like women in that structure. So I like women. So that connects me with woman. So I had a biological connection to, you see where this is going. This is when I was young. I was probably 11 or 12, probably because of the satanic Harry Potter books that infected me with all these evil satanic thoughts. No, so physically I connected with the men. In this movement, I felt connected to the woman. And I remember being very confused, very, very confused as a child. And I can see why people in that type of, because I'm gay, right? I'm a man and I like men. That's who I am. And I found out eventually that that's who I am. I could see how children in that type of state of confusion, because come on, who hasn't during puberty had any myriad of thoughts or emotions, or just being so confused, the changes in their bodies, and not it's like your body's changing but your mind can't keep up with it, and it's so confusing. It's a difficult time. Puberty is a very difficult time for everyone, and I can see how people might think like I did. Oh, sorry. That maybe this is the way out of feeling that way. Maybe this means that I should transition because I relate to women more, or something like that. Of course, because I wasn't even exposed to transgender people until I was older. That wasn't in my head. But it's common now. Transgender people are all over the internet. It's a topic that comes up a lot. There's a push for it in society, so a lot of children are exposed to transgender. And just like J.K. Rowling is going to say, let's actually read. She explains the 5 reasons why she thinks that this is a topic that she should talk about. Things that she's connected with. So for all the people who think like, who the heck is J.K. Rowling? Why should she be talking about this and spreading all the hate? Well, she, in her mind, has a reason to do so. It's not just to cause drama. Let's see. I'm trying to find, it's a long essay. Let me see. Sorry. Let me see. I can actually turn on the music right now since we're... I don't want to listen to this. There we go. I'm trying to find what she was saying. Okay. I believe the majority of trans-identified people not only pose zero threat to others, but are vulnerable for all the reasons I've outlined, which you can read if you want. Actually, I'll put this in the chat if anyone wants to read it. Yeah, and if anybody's here wants to give a like to the video, I would appreciate it. I would appreciate it a lot. So, I believe the majority of trans-identified people not only pose zero threat to others, so she's not accusing transgender people of being the violent people, but so not only pose zero threat, but are vulnerable, but they are vulnerable. They are vulnerable people. Trans people need and deserve protection. Like women, they're most likely to be killed by sexual partners. Trans women who work in the sex industry, particularly trans women of color, are at particular risk. Like every other domestic abuse and sexual assault survivor I know, I feel nothing but empathy and solidarity with trans women who've been abused by men. Okay, that seems rational, doesn't it? That seems reasonable. That seems true. That seems honest. That seems good. But, as we will see... Oh no, not from her. From her. Let me see if I can find it. So she reads through the essay. And she talks about that particular... let me see if I can find it. Let me see.
Sexist men online that are like, fuck women, let's rape them all. To the trans activists who declare that TERFs need punching and re-educating, men across the political system seem to agree. The misogynism that is in the country. Trans activists. Now people are emailing her saying that, you know, it's not enough to be a trans ally. I have to admit that they're the same as me and I've been through all these struggles, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so that's the thing. She's saying that... So this is what people do. I can't find the exact thing, but here in this paragraph... Oh, you can't... Ugh. There we go. So in this paragraph, she says all this, which seems good, right? But this lady, Samantha, she says, like women, so this part, like women, they're most likely to be killed by sexual partners. So the problem is J.K. Rowling saying there's a difference between transgender women and women. So that's her stance. So obviously from her position, she would say like women. This is where they're similar. So there's similarities, but they're not 100% the same. And in my mind, I mean, if there were no difference, there wouldn't be another name, transgender women. And I think that's where the battle's going to be, on the definition of woman. And that is where the battle is being waged right now, on language. Because if we extend the definition of woman, that includes a transgender woman, then where is the identity of the original woman, the real woman, or however you want to say it, the biological woman? Where is her identity now? Is she a non-transgender woman? Like, how does she how does she differentiate herself? How does she defend things that don't apply to transgender women? How does she focus on things that don't apply to transgender? It's like when you play games when you manipulate language, it has catastrophic effects. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good to redefine terms or specify more, clarify more, get a better idea of something. That's helpful, but it always comes with very catastrophic consequences. And something like this, as a feminist, J.K. Rowling saying, hey, what about the women? She says here, so I want trans women to be safe. At the same time, oh, I think this is something that she talks about.
No trans woman is erasing the. She says, I'm not doing this to gain sympathy, but I've never publicly talked about being a domestic abuse and sexual assault, and she doesn't want to be called a bigot for not wanting trans people in. Go open the doors of bathrooms.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. I found it finally. So this is the paragraph we were just about to read in the essay.
At the same time, I do not want to make.
Okay, so I want trans women to be safe. At the same time, I don't want to make natal girls and women less safe.
Natal girls and women less safe. When you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, and as I've said, gender confirmation certificates may now be granted without any need for surgery or hormones, then you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. That is the simple truth. I'm getting so heated right now.
And this is where language is really important. It's important to be clear, because I can't interpret J.K. Rowling's words to make sense for me. I have to take them at face value. And it seems to me that what she's saying is you throw the door open to any biological man to come in. Any man who believes or feels he's a woman. So any biological man. She's focusing on the difference. And that difference can in some cases be catastrophic. It can be violent. It can cause I don't know how to say this very delicately, but that's the dangerous part. It can be. So maybe I don't want to reinterpret someone's words to agree with them, but I think the idea is we have this movement to just make all these changes, change the words, open the spaces of women, the spaces before for women to transgender women too, to do all these changes. But are we stopping to see what might happen? Are we moving too fast that we're not aware of the effects of this? We hear from so many people that this is good, and if you don't accept this and you hate these people and you think, oh, I don't hate these people, so I must accept this, and people who don't necessarily want to investigate and understand more what's behind all of these decisions that we're just supposed to go along with. For those people, it's like, well, yeah, of course I like trans people. I love all people. So, oh yeah, I'll accept this. I accept that. And without realizing what could happen. And that's the part, because here, the men in the men's bathroom, they're not going to have a problem with this change. It's not going to affect them at all. It's the women. We make we make all of these changes in society to, okay, sorry. I'm just making sure that you can see the video. But we're making all these changes in society for the benefit of trans people. But who's being affected more? Not the men. It's the women athletes, biological women. It's the bathrooms. It's the changing rooms. It's prisons. It's all of this. The men, it does, like with the prison example. If a criminal, transgender criminal, and that doesn't mean that all transgender people are criminals. I'm not saying that. But if a transgender criminal who was sent to prison for sexual violence against a woman goes to a woman's prison, it's not the transsexual, transgender woman who's going to be a victim in that situation. Hypothetically, I'm sure there's possible situations where that would be the case, especially if like 60 women from the prison went against the one. But anyway, but then you send that same transgender woman to a male only prison because biologically a man. Who's going to be the victim there? Probably not the men.
Open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. That is the simple truth. I'm getting so heated right now. My God. She starts out strong. I want trans women to feel safe. Thanks. We appreciate that so much. And then she goes on.
A little condescending.
When you open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to men, who's the men? Who are the men? Who opened it?
Okay, so we're gonna watch Blair White a little bit more because she gives a really good example of, because it's like when you look at someone like her, Samantha Lux, you're like, well, I would never think that's a transsexual. That's like in my head, I'm be like, oh, that's a girl. There'd be no problem. But that's not always the case, especially now. That's not always the case.
There's a new policy there which allows biologically male rapists to be recorded by the police.
Thank you for bleeping, Blair.
If they choose to identify as a woman, tell police they are a woman. It's a ludicrous policy that anyone with a shred of common sense or decency would oppose, but we're dealing with a mob of people who don't have either of those things. I mean, imagine... Okay,
this is something I see all the time. Like, I'm just going to take a nice little jab at this person and then they have no ounce of brain activity. Okay. That's her persona. I'm not that type of person, even though I think it.
Being a woman who is raped by a man, and on their say-so, they get to be recorded as a woman by the police. But what makes it really egregious, in my opinion, is that the legal definition of rape in Scotland is non-consensual penetration by male anatomy. So by recording them as a woman, you are essentially contradicting the fact that there was even a rape that occurred.
Okay.
On the basis of them saying that they identify as women. So it's really not a stretch to think that this could happen.
Okay, so she gives an example. This is good.
There are biologically male rapists that are put in women's prisons simply on the basis of them saying that they identify as women. So it's really not a stretch to think that this could happen in Scotland based on this new policy. In fact, I'm almost completely certain that it will. So these very tragic looking trans activists showed up at Rowling's home.
So let's attack their looks. Blair.
For pictures in front of her home, making sure that her address was visible.
That's play dirty. That's what the people are doing. They're just playing dirty. I mean, Blair's making fun of their looks, but these people, these activists, are doxing J.K. Rowling's house. I'm sure she has security. I'm sure she can defend herself, but that's such... This is the paradox of tolerance. I don't know if anyone has... We're going to look at the paradox of tolerance. Let me look it up right now. Paradox of tolerance. Paradox of tolerance debunked. Wikipedia. I don't really want Wikipedia. Sorry. Let's see if this is a good... All right. Explanation. This issue is a primary... Okay, here we are. We're here. This issue is a primary point of contention in a political philosophical puzzle known as the paradox of tolerance. The First Amendment entitles everyone to their own opinions. First Amendment. Free speech. But there will inevitably be ideas that do not align with the socially accepted norms. extreme ideologies can present a real danger to society and, more often, certain minority populations. For example, hate speech directed at ethnic and religious minorities stresses disapproval of their differences and often threatens violence. Not necessarily, but while people hold the right to think and speak intolerant ideas, others are free to disagree. Free speech. I say one thing, you say I don't agree. Free speech. The paradox of tolerance questions at what point intolerant ideas can no longer be tolerated. So I tolerate that you don't have the same opinion that I do. But to what point? At what point can I not be tolerant of your ideas? And whether infringing on individual rights in the name of tolerance is acceptable. Karl Popper, philosopher. In order to maintain a tolerant society, so free speech for everyone, the society must be intolerant of intolerance. Does that make sense to people? You must be intolerant of intolerance. So if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to not give you the mic, and you will not have any permission to talk in the comments. And you can just view my position, and I can sit here and talk about everything. But you have to be quiet, because your views, I think, are intolerant. I mean, that's the extreme that it goes to. Obviously, if we're talking about crimes, actual speech that instigates violence, that's a crime. That's not free speech. That's not covered under the First Amendment. But that's not where people go. Because obviously, if you don't agree with me on a particular issue that I find fundamental, that means I have the right to attack you.
It's the men. Nobody did. I think they just opened it to trans women. Is that what they said? I think that's what the law was, no? Because if you're worried about men pretending to be women and going in women's dress.
We weren't watching her. We were watching her. Sorry.
Well, obviously it's censored out here. In response, Rowling said, last Friday, my family's address was posted on Twitter by 3 activist actors who took pictures of themselves in front of our house, carefully positioning themselves to ensure that our address was visible. It's important to know that this occurred.
All right, let's get into the juicy stuff.
To a woman's house, doxing her, all for the sin of having a different opinion than you. Check out the Young Turds take on
Not the Young Turks, the Young Turds.
J.K. Rowling is in the hot seat yet again for weighing in on transgender issues, this time in the context of and how some countries have decided to honor the gender identity of people who are transgender.
Wrong. We're 19 seconds into the video and you've already told a lie. They don't just honor the gender identity of trans people. This is a lie. It is a policy that affects all people. In fact, you can almost take trans out of it because statistically, likely the people that actually are committing are not going to be trans people.
And that's something that J.K. Rowling said. The trans people are not, they're not the ones to be afraid of. They're not the ones that are going to be the criminals. In fact, they're probably the ones who are going to be the victim. And they are the victim in a lot of cases. That's not what the idea is.
Is that what y'all want to hear, the activists? Because that's the truth. Trans people statistically don't commit these crimes. However, people who can and will take advantage of this policy absolutely will.
But
and that's all that people are saying. I'd like to hear people, even if you're watching this after the fact, what do you think is a good perspective to have that does not... It seems to me that you have these two extreme ideas. one of them seems to be more reasonable than the other, in my opinion. Everyone can have their own opinion, but how do you approach these subjects? What are the steps that you take? Because a lot of people will be mothers and fathers one day, have kids, and this is the world that they're going to grow up in. And what is going to be your approach in that? What is going to be your approach in treating these subjects? I'm interested in hearing your opinion.
She has decided to focus on the fact that some countries, again, have decided to honor the gender identity of individuals who might identify as something other than what they were born as. So, you know, if you're...
Yeah, we heard this. Thank you.
It's appropriate. And maybe you have to go through it to really understand what I'm talking about here. But nevertheless, say I went to the police, reported the man who raped me, and based on his say-so, he gets to say, I'm a woman. They log him as a woman and then potentially put him in a woman's prison. That is disgusting. Like, it's so ludicrous and insulting on a level that I probably couldn't even articulate. Like, that you can just take that narrative of a woman being taken advantage of by a man and the police say, well, actually, it was a woman.
Yeah, I mean, it's already humiliating to go through that type of experience, I'm sure. But yeah.
No, it wasn't. What happened happened. You don't get to erase it to be politically correct.
So the paranoia is in fact stemming from a recent law in Scotland, which allows trans people to self-identify as male or female in the Scottish census.
The point is, the person does not have to be trans at all in the situation. In fact, statistically, they are not going to be. Does this person in Washington who was placed in a women's prison after...
We're not attacking people. We're not attacking a whole group of people. But it's important to just look at reality face to face and think, does this make sense to me? And to be open and honest enough to ask those hard questions instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to say that looks like a woman, so oh yeah, it's a woman, huh? You know, or oh, I don't think it's. Still considering how to consider this. It seems like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So just don't really talk much about it at this point. What was the most common penance you gave to penance? I told him to stay off YouTube, so maybe that's something that maybe it's God telling me to tell you this right now.
After being convicted of really seem like a trans woman to you. Anyways,
and this is someone who was convicted of sexual assault.
I'm literally gonna pop a blood vessel in my brain if you're watching any more of this video, so we're gonna cut it from right there. I just wanted to show you how these people gaslight you, and when they don't have an actual rebuttal, they just pretend it's not happening. They just pretend it's not an actual issue, and that you're crazy for thinking it's an issue.
Yeah, it's like we're not even allowed. Like I said, I'm not like I don't agree with Blair just automatically. It's not like, oh, she has a video, so anything she says I'm going to obviously agree with because she's the best and she's so smart. Well, everyone just heard that noise. So it's not like that. But we're not allowed to think anymore. We're not allowed to question. We're not allowed. It's like a cult. It's like a religious cult where you have to just go along with the narrative and just, oh yeah, of course. Of course. What am I supposed to think? Oh yes, that's exactly what I think. And especially in groups, especially at work, when we're out with people, it's like, I don't want to cause a problem. I don't want to ask a question. I don't want to be singled out. That happens all the time. I've come across that. I think I said this before in a previous live. Sometimes I get like anxious, like I'm about to say something that I'm sure a lot of people are not going to like. But that's the purpose of my channel, to ask those questions, to present ideas that maybe someone else is thinking that they maybe think that that's not right or not good to question something or to investigate. They just have they're supposed to assent to ideas and doctrines, secular or religious.
So I think that people have this thing where if someone has enough money or fame or glory or whatever, that like nothing affects them. And when I think about all the people that Rowling has given careers and given riches to.
All right. I already said that. She talks a little bit about the actors and what they say.
The past where I've shown how many trans people actually do agree with her, and it's not some overwhelming consensus. I mean, I'm sitting here defending her. There are tons of people on Twitter
that's
that
something.
She will quote tweet trans people that agree with her, but that just gets canceled out because of the legions of just non-trans woke allies who, you know, their say actually matters way more than mine, even though I'm trans, right? I'm just so over it. I'm over the groupthink. I'm over the burning the witch at the stake every 6 months. And maybe I feel so strong.
No pun intended. J.K. Rowling, the witch, the author of Harry Potter.
About this because I am such a huge Harry Potter fan. I don't know if I've ever even talked about that in the videos, but I grew up on Harry Potter. She tweeted recently, perhaps, and I'm just throwing this out there, the best way to prove your movement isn't a threat to women is to stop stalking, harassing, and threatening us. And I think that's just a beautiful, just perfect way to word it. I will say this though, even though the level of hatred launched at her is so intense, I do think her legacy will outlive it. I think that this destructive ideology that she's battling, that I'm battling, that so many of us are battling, like it will eventually die out. It's so illogical, it's so insane, it's so hysterical that it can only eventually run itself into the ground. Granted, it will do a lot of damage before it does that, and there's a lot more damage coming, but eventually.
There was another thing that I wanted to. This is Blair from 2 years ago, and she gave a good example too, because it's the same thing. It always comes up.
Think Tank Center for Global Development, so really nothing to do with gender at all. And she actually lost her.
Oh, this is talking about the Maya Forstater. Forstater. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that the first tweet from J.K. Rowling in support of her.
For making some tweets and public statements about trans people. Now it's going around that Maya actually was on Twitter and misgendered a trans woman. And I'm gonna put
the dog again. I'm super duper gay, but explicitly not homosexual. Homosexual. Love my homies. I'm homosexual too. I was trying to think of a funny pun for like subscribers. I'm subsexual. No, that doesn't sound good. Subscriber-actual. No, it doesn't sound good either. The dog. I love these comments of people that come in. Padre. Oh, the dog. Padre, this Christmas, you must meditate that God assumed the poorest of human states to unite himself to his creatures. Through this example, despite your current poor state, there is hope and you can be saved. I'm in a poor state. I am poor, actually. I'm running on fumes, money-wise. I'm sure that I would be in some sort of government system, government program for food. That's subscriptual. I don't know. That any of the X that I don't think that sounds good. Subscriptual. Anyway, let's keep watching. So that Well, this will be the last bit, I promise. I know this is a lot, but it's interesting to just hear different views.
That trans woman up on the screen, and I want you guys to tell me what pronoun you would probably naturally use for this individual. Right. Okay. Now, again, this is only one of the offenses cited as a reason that Maya lost her job, and we'll get to the others, and you can decide for yourself if you think
I mean, it's obvious that a lot of these issues are not black and white or not self-evident. It's like one example that I have now, and this might be controversial. Welcome to the channel. One of the things now going on because of everything that happened 2 years ago, that's still going on now, and getting the jab. I have to use these words because YouTube policies, it's very annoying. But if everything was so clear, if for one instance, if we were experiencing something like the Black Plague, I think that people would be a lot more excited. That's not the right word, but it'd be easier for people to do whatever possible in order to not get it. This situation, it's not the Black Plague. It's not even the flu epidemic. So to treat it like that, in the minds of some people, doesn't make sense. I thought that it was in the beginning. I was like, holy cow, what the heck's going to happen? I was trying to figure out, like, okay, now is the moment. I should have done this before, but now is the moment. Now that I'm in Mexico, I have to figure out health insurance and all this stuff. And then after time goes on, and I thought, okay, not as bad as I thought it was. And then months pass, really not as bad as I thought it was. I looked like an idiot in the beginning, the way that I was acting, spraying everything down with Lysol. Wow. Then on the other side, if this means as in medium of preventing said non-Black Plague, this is not confusing. I wish I could just use the real words. I'll say COVID. So if the jab really protected us from COVID, like for instance the jab for the flu, where if you get the jab, you don't get the flu that season. If it was that black and white, then people would do it. We have to be aware that some things, maybe for this person, it just seems so obvious. You have two paths, and someone says, this is the right path, isn't it obvious? And someone else looks and says, well, I can't tell. But instead of giving that person a reason to do it, it's demanded. It's demanded of you. Stop thinking. Stop being paranoid. Stop all this, whatever adjective that I can't say on here. But anti this, anti that. It's like, no, maybe we're just, I say we, but I mean, maybe they are just waiting to understand more. No, you have to think like this. You have to have these transgender ideas 100%, or you're against us. Is that really a rational way of acting? I think not. That's not how I think. As we did today, we look at different ideas. I am watching Harry Potter, so I think, oh, this is a interesting thing. Let me go back into my past and look at how I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter. And then I'm going to look at the the recent development with J.K. Rowling because I've been thinking about Harry Potter. That's how. And then, oh, the trans issue. Oh, let's talk about this. Let's investigate. Let's look at some of the more popular people and what their viewpoints are and see what I get out of it. That's how I approach these subjects. Call it beer. So if you take a beer to prevent you from getting COVID, no. Well, no, it's too confusing. Anyway, so I mean, I'm so happy about this mic. I feel like my voice wasn't strained and everything was clear. And yeah, I'm excited about this new chapter. And as always, if anybody has any topics that you want me to talk about, anything, maybe even I covered it before in a video, but now in this type of space, in this live, I can go into it in more depth, answer some questions. So just shoot me a message on my Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. Just shoot me a message, and I'll try to read them and see if I can make a subject about it, because I also want to cover things that people want to talk about. So yes, thank you, Aran. So anyway, I'll see you next time.